So I was going to film this video in my room this morning until I looked outside my window and saw how beautiful it was, and there's not a single cloud in the Washington sky, so I had to film a video outside. It's just too nice, and I can't stay in my room today. So this video is going to be very long, and for good reason, because in this video I'm going to be discussing singleness and relationship abuse. I'm going to go into detail regarding my past relationship. I try to stay away from talking about my past relationship for the most part, but at the same time, it was such a big learning experience for me that I believe that through sharing my parts of my past relationship story, it will be able to help people understand where exactly I'm coming from in the area of being single. So with that said, let's begin the topic of singleness. So for those of you who don't know, I've been single since 2009. Yes, that's a very long time. Also, I have not dated a single person since 2009. September of 2009, to be more specific. But nonetheless, I haven't dated anyone since then. If there's one thing I don't like about being single, it's the fact that everybody seems to assume why I am single. When I make videos on YouTube, they see the back of my wall and they see comic books, which instantly entails them to assume that I am a geek, which I am, but I have no idea how to be social with people. I'm socially awkward, I don't know how to talk to a woman, I couldn't look at a woman in her face or to her eyes, and that's really a gigantic mistake and assumption on their part, because it couldn't be more wrong. I interact with people on a day-to-day basis. I have 2 jobs, one of which I'm always working with people. I can socially interact with people before. I've taken public speaking, I've taken classes, I've done speeches in front of a couple thousand people, a couple hundred, excuse me. And I'm not socially awkward. The reason I'm single, despite all the assumptions as to why they think I'm single, is because I choose to be single. And I choose to be single for many different reasons, but the main reason is because I had such a terrible past first relationship. So if we go back to my past relationship, when it first started, it all started through instant messaging. I added this girl I liked on Gmail, the Gmail, the chat, the email client, and through Gmail you could have what is known as chat conversations. You can email them, and then if they're online, you can chat them just like any other instant messaging program. And this is where my first relationship developed over the internet. And when I speak against online dating or getting to know people only through the internet, you can kind of understand why I hold this position, is because my first relationship started, well, through instant messaging, and I've had a very bad experience through it, as I'll explain later. But eventually, through instant messaging, I got the guts to eventually start to talk to her at the church that I was going to at that time. So when I started talking to her in person, it kind of just worked out that, well, we talked to people mostly on the internet, but then when we did see each other, we would talk to each other in real life. And personally, I prefer real-life interaction versus the internet any day, but So we jumped into a relationship prematurely, and when I say jump, I mean I didn't really know much about her. I didn't know her interests, I didn't know the type of person she was. That's why when I think of relationships or dating, my dog just burped.
Did you burpee? You did a burp! You did a burp!
I just lost my train of thought thanks to you burping. So we jumped into a relationship prematurely, I didn't know much about her, and then for the remaining nearly 2-year relationship, I didn't really know anything about her as an individual. We jumped in, we both liked each other, and if anything, that's not how a relationship should work. If you want to pursue a girl or you want to go into a relationship with someone, I strongly advise that you get to know them before going into a relationship with them, because if you do that, you can really know, for the most part, what you're getting into and the person that you're getting involved with. So I was in this relationship for almost 2 years, and during this relationship, since it was my first one, I was very easily what you could call controlled and manipulated. I had never been with a girl, I'd never been physically affectionate with a girl, I had never kissed a girl, I had never held a girl's hand, I had never hugged a girl I'd never been physical. I was a sheltered Christian boy who had really no experience in the area of getting to know women or dating specifically. So during our relationship, I started to realize certain things about our relationship that we were in. Number one, it was completely one-sided. Relationships won't work if they're one-sided. When I say it's one-sided, I mean I would do things for her that she wouldn't do for me. I would sacrifice things for her that she wouldn't do for me. One great example of this is when she wanted to have my Facebook password and she wanted to be able to log onto my Facebook. I'm a fairly trusting person and I believe I had nothing to hide, so I gave her access to my Facebook so she could see all my friends, she could see who I was talking to, etc., etc. Well, when she eventually opened her own Facebook, I asked if I could have, if I could have her password so I could be on her Facebook, so we would have this equal amount of trust between us. She has access to my Facebook, I have access to her Facebook. Well, lesson be learned, she wouldn't let me have access to her Facebook, and for good reason, mainly because little did I know is when she broke up with me, she instantly jumped on to another guy by the name of Josh. Now, maybe they had been talking on Facebook prior to this, I don't know, but what I do know is that she didn't want me to have access to her Facebook for some reason, yet I was perfectly willing to sacrifice my own Facebook privacy on my Facebook for her. Yet she wasn't willing to do the same. When you have a relationship that is one-sided, it's going to have troubles, it's not going to work out very well. But more than just that, after the relationship ended between us, I then came to a new realization. I did personally. Other people in my family and friends told me that they saw this, but every time they confronted me on the issue, I said that they're crazy. The issue was I was being verbally abused in my relationship with this girl. This girl, actually no, let me back up. There's two things in a relationship for you to recognize abuse. There's what is physical abuse and what is emotional abuse. Now, normally, if someone's being physically abused, they know that they're being physically beaten, yet they just don't do anything about it, they don't react because they're fearful or whatever. But I think emotional abuse is one of the deadliest, more than physical abuse. And let me explain why. Emotional abuse has two areas, manipulation and control. Depending on the person you're with, some people can be a mastermind at control and manipulation. Sometimes it's just manipulation, sometimes it's just control, but in my case, it was both. I was manipulated and controlled into doing things in the relationship which I didn't want to do, but most of all, if I didn't want to do something, this girl would use a manipulation tactic on me. And this is how you detect a manipulation tactic. If they say something to the liking of, if you don't do this, you don't love me. If you don't do what I want, you don't care for me. This is the type of mentality I endured all throughout our relationship. It got so bad within the area of manipulation and control that she told me that I wasn't allowed to see certain movies at the movie theater because she was concerned that I would see another attractive girl and find that person attractive. And then I guess, I don't really know her exact reason for this, but I guess she would think that I would switch off to her to somebody else. I don't know. The point is, I still remember the phone conversation where she wouldn't let me see a certain movie, and I was saying, I really want to see this movie, and she's like, I don't want you to see this movie, and I was like, asked her, why don't you want me to see this movie? Well, because this actress is attractive, and I think that you find her attractive. And I was like, so you're assuming that I find certain girls attractive? And she's like, yeah. And like, well, first of all, I don't find this girl that you're telling me I find attractive. And then she would say, well, I know you better than you know yourself. Which ultimately led to me not going to the movie because she would say, well, if you see this movie, you don't love me. I'm not joking, people. This is the type of mentality I was dealing with constantly through my relationship. I was being controlled and manipulated into doing things I wanted to do, but she wouldn't let me, or things I didn't want to do that she wanted me to do. Furthermore, she also told me that I had to cut contact with one of my closest guy friends because she believed in what is known as a one-person best friend relationship. She was my best friend at the time, but I also had another best friend who was a male, and she believed that it was wrong to me to have a best guy friend, and she actually manipulated and controlled me enough to the point where I cut my friendship off with one of my closest guy friends because she didn't like it and she didn't want me to have another guy friend because she was worried and concerned that I would confide into him and not her. So lesson learned, if you want to detect a emotionally abusive person, someone who verbally or emotionally abuses you, this is one of those things. When they pressure you to do things or pressure you out to do things that you want to do, you're being emotionally abused. You're being controlled and manipulated. In my relationship, I really never had a choice regarding anything. I was always told what I should do or what I shouldn't do by this girl. The interesting thing, though, is that right after our relationship ended in September of 2009, I started to try to move away from the relationship. To prove my point further, after our relationship ended in September of 2009, even after she dumped me, she was still trying to pop back into my life and control different aspects of me, of who I was. It led to her sending messages on Facebook to people that I know, claiming that I am a low-life person who only wants to use girls for sex. I only want to use them physically. I have no desire to get to know them as a person. I only care about sex, 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 sex. And she actually sent out a slanderous email to numerous people on Facebook defaming my name. Now, if anything knows about defaming is the goal of spreading lies about someone to degrade their character, to degrade who they are, and you can actually take someone to court over this issue. But me being the kind, stupid person I was at the time, I didn't want to take her to court over her slandering my name, because it was only still 4 or 5 months after our relationship, and I just didn't have the guts to take her to court over these terrible things that she was saying about me, which were untrue. So several months after her sending out this email, I was still trying to distance myself from her. At this time, I was still stupid. I hadn't blocked her from Facebook, so she still was, even though she didn't have access to my Facebook, but every time I would log on to Facebook, she was skimming my page, seeing if a girl sent me a message, or a girl wrote on my wall, or a girl liked my status, she would go all crazy over the issue. So about 7 months after the relationship had ended, I became interested in another girl, and the next thing I find out is that somehow she found out about this, and the next thing, there's a knock at my door, and she walks into my house and sits me down and starts telling me why I shouldn't be interested in this other girl, and instead I should be interested in her. And I looked at her just shocked, and I'm like, you dumped me, you jumped onto another guy, you ignored me all throughout the college classes we were in, because we were all in the same college classes right after she broke up with me, and you are coming to my house telling me that I shouldn't be interested in another girl and instead should be interested in you and you only. But me being stupid, I, ended the pursuit that I was doing on this other girl that I was interested, and deleted her off of Facebook because my ex-girlfriend told me to do it. And you're probably wondering how I could be so stupid to let someone control me like that, but the difference is I cared for this person, and when you care for this person, you do stupid things even after they dump you, even after they throw you on the side of the ground and say you're worthless and stupid and you're not worth my time anymore and move on to some other guy. When you care about someone, you naturally want to be nice. You naturally want to do things that will make them happy. And I am what is known as a people pleaser. If you ever meet me, this is one of my greatest character flaws, is that I like to do people pleasing. I like to go out of my way to make people happy. And in doing so, it usually ends up getting me deeply hurt. So lesson 2 has been learned. If a boyfriend or girlfriend comes to you after the relationship has ended and they broke it off with you, and then tries to control you, who you cannot be interested in and who you can be interested in, that's another sign of a control/manipulating person, which ultimately is a form of verbal or emotional abuse. So you're probably wondering why I am telling you all this. The reason is because that's partially as to why I'm single. I'm single because I choose to be. I have had people pursue me, women, who have given me their numbers, but I've never called them, and I have no interest in calling them, because I believe in an old-fashioned relationships. I think that guys should be the people to pursue girls. They should be the person to pursue and ask the girl out. They should be the guy to ask. They should be the guy to ask a girl for her number, etc. That's my opinion. Now, I'm not bashing women who give their numbers out to men, but I just believe in the old-fashioned way of asking a girl out. That said, again, I'm single because I choose to be. The biggest problem I had in this past relationship is that this girl wanted to change who I was. This girl claimed to be a Christian. There was times in our relationship where I would try to sit down with her and read the Bible, and she would resist. She would never read the Bible with me. She would never pray with me. And for those of you who don't know, I'm a Christian, and therefore, if you're in a Christian relationship with a girl, you are supposed to put God first above everything. You have a guy and a girl who both put God first in their relationship, and then their relationship comes second. That's how a Christian relationship works. But she never would read the Bible with me. She would never pray with me like I wanted to do. So ultimately, during this time, I was feeling like I was kind of a failure in our relationship in terms of being a godly Christian man. But ultimately, she was always trying to change who I was as a person. We had similar interests in certain things, but she always wanted to change me into somebody I wasn't. But ultimately, she was always trying to change me in the relationship. And even after our relationship ended, she even admitted to me that she wanted to change me into her own image of what I should be like. In other words, what the person I wasn't good enough for her. She wanted to shape me and change me into someone who she thought was the perfect man. This led to a lot of arguments, miscommunications, and ultimately, I could not be myself. And that's something that's really important in any relationship, is that if a girl or guy does not accept you for the type of person you are, then your relationship is going to have struggles and it probably will not work out. Because be yourself is one of the most important things, I think, in a relationship, besides honesty and commitment, is to be you. Be who you are, and don't let your partner try to transform you into their own personalized image of what they think you should be. So again, repeating myself, I'm single because I choose to be. But moving on to the topic of singleness, I'm also single because I feel as if I haven't found the right person. I have a very narrow mind when it comes to dating. I believe that I should be friends with a girl before I ask her out on a date. I should get to know her, a little bit about her, before I ask her out on a date. Because I look at dating as a very legalistic approach. I should only want to date someone. Now, this is my opinion. I only want to date someone who I have serious intentions with. I only want to date someone who I could maybe picture myself marrying in the future. I have lots of guy friends who go on one date with a girl, go on another date with a girl, go on another date with a girl, go on another date with a girl, over and over and over again. And I'm not like that. I'm really a one-man, one-girl type. If I'm interested in a girl, I'm only going to be interested in her until she either says she doesn't want a relationship with me or in some way rejects me. I'm going to be interested in that one girl and nobody else until I get the gist from her that she's not interested. Then I'll move on. Now, I get made fun of having this mentality all the time. They say, well, you're so narrow-minded when it comes to dating. And I agree, I am. But that's just who I am, and that's just my standard for what I think dating should be. If I'm going to ask somebody out a date, I have a genuine desire to get to know them more than just them being attractive, but I want to get to know their personality, the core heart of the individual, who they are, their standards, and their values. It's stupid when I hear that all these guys date girls just because they're hot or just because they're attractive conditionally. Attractiveness is conditional. Do you guys realize that? Meaning that there are going to be times with your wife or girlfriend where she is not up to prime and she doesn't look beautiful, and that's what's known as conditional attractiveness, that you only like somebody when they're attractive. And for me, I have this desire to get to know somebody, and then when I get to know them, I love them and care for them unconditionally, whether they have wrinkles under their skin, or whether they have a few extra pounds, or whether they are too skinny, or whether they have curves, or whether they're, I don't know, I don't know where I was going with that. The point is that I don't just date on a whim like so many people do in this day and age. It was interesting, last week I was discussing with someone on dating, and they were telling me that there's certain conditions where they would not date a girl. And then I explained to them my conditions to where I would date a girl. And, I'm just going to list off some things about what I look for in a girl. She has to be kind, compassionate, loving, have some sort of musical talent, whether it's playing an instrument or singing, has to be a Christian. I really want someone with my same values and standards. And you have to understand, this is for me, I'm a Christian, and therefore I want someone who at least has the same values and standards as me, because in my past relationship, that wasn't the case. I had different standards and values than she did, and ultimately she was always trying to convert me out of my mentality of the certain values and standards I have, which is not good. I don't want someone trying to change who I am. But ultimately, I just want a girl who is attractive, but more so has a heart to serve other people and help other people, and desire to serve others other than herself. I really want a girl who is able to respect herself, because nowadays it seems that respect is just diminishing over time. The same person I was talking about dating last week asked me if I would date or marry a girl who I knew previously could not have children. And my answer to him was yes. That's the type of person I am. I want children, but if I find a girl who has values and standards and has what I'm looking for in a relationship, and in terms of character and quality, if she can't have children, that's okay. That's not going to make me look at her different. If she has a few extra pounds, I'm not going to look at her different. I'm still going to be looking to her as a beautiful individual, and I'm going to care for her and love for her no matter what happens to her. But Daniel, what if she had a disease of some sort or something? It wouldn't change my mind. It wouldn't change my view. My dad had an extremely rare disease back in early 2000. The disease led him to shed 5 cups of skin a day. His body would inflame. Here's my hand. Imagine my hand this size. His entire body was inflamed so bad with his skin. He would have to sleep in oil beds each night. And I still loved my dad despite what he was going through. Despite his limits on what he could do. He couldn't go out to public and do things with me. I still loved him. I still cared for him. And I view that same mentality for any relationship of girlfriend or wife that I'm going to have in the future. So with that said, ladies and gentlemen, this kind of explains why I'm single. I'm single because I choose to be, and I haven't found that right person. So this kind of sums up my video, ladies and gentlemen, on why I'm single. I'm single ultimately because I choose to be, and I just haven't found that right person with the standards and qualities, character qualities, that I want in somebody. I don't have a specification on they have to have a certain eye color, they have to be a certain weight, they have to have a certain hair color. I'm not about that. But what I can tell you right now is that I am interested in a girl. And that right now I am actively seeking prayer in, how do I say this? Pursuing a relationship with this person, or I should say pursuing a friendship first and then a relationship. But ultimately we'll see where it goes, if it even goes anywhere. But with that said, ladies and gentlemen, I'm Mr. Repzion, also known as Daniel Sulzbach. I hope this kind of gave you an insight of why I'm single, why I choose to be single, and ultimately how to detect kind of an emotionally or verbally abusive relationship if you ever get established in one. So with that said, I'm Mr. Repzion, also known as Daniel Sulzbach. Peace the rep out, and enjoy the sun like I am doing right here. Woohoo!